Hello, everybody. Same Dad podcast fans out there. We're here for another ride in the wacky, wonderful universe of the Midwest and all the crazy stories. Welcome back to Same Dad podcast. I'm Jesse, and this is my half sister, Kellie. I got it right twice in a row there.
Good job.
Yeah. Well, we welcome everybody back. How have you been doing, Kellie?
Pretty good. Just pretty normal work day for me. How you doing?
Oh, pretty good. Just staying busy. Had a busy day today. I guess they say busy life is a full life. I don't know what exactly it's full of, but it's full.
Yeah, same here. So kids are getting ready to go back to school here where I am. And it used to be there was a big buildup for the kids. You go out to Walmart or wherever you get your school supplies, and it was just kind of this treat. You'd buy all these fresh notebooks, pencils. Well, I asked my junior, soon to be junior in high school, what he needed, and I get an answer like, well, I'll just scrounge around some pencils. I got a Chromebook and I'm good. And it devastated me. So I'm kind of grieving the loss of the school supply shopping experience, but other than that, doing pretty well.
Yeah, I used to love the Bookmobile when it come through, and you buy those pencil grips and sticky erasers and all kinds of stuff. Like 10 for $1 and this and that, or neat looking pencils.
Yeah, I remember. Well, so they would do that. So there was the Bookmobile that, as I remember, was sponsored by your local library, and literally a bus with books in it. I'd show up in your neighborhood. That was pretty cool. But what I'm thinking of, and you're reminding me of, are what they used to call, it would be like the bookshops. I can't remember what that was called, but they, embed themselves in the elementary, and you'd have to feel pressured to send like, $20 with your kid so that they could get a couple books, some pencils, and another trinket. And then later on in my kids' life, they added something called the Santa shop, because I guess they thought there was no other adult in their life that could literally take them shopping for their gifts for others. So then, you'd spend more money on, we'd get some gifts like a homemade ornament or, name it, something that said dad on it, or a mug, or it was great. But I guess we do still have some of those things, but yeah, we're not spending money on those things anymore. Bigger things, really.
Yeah, I wish it was as simple as
I guess you should be thankful.
One time when book sales come through, and I bought a bunch of pencil top erasers. I got a good deal on them, like 10 for $1, and I took them home and I stuck them all over my face, because you could squeeze them down. You could spit on them a little bit, squeeze them down and stick them on your head and let go, and they'd stay stuck. So you just see how many of them you could stick on your head. And I remember I had these little ring pock marks all over me, and my mom actually wrote a note saying that those were not cigarette burns. I had to take a cigarette burn note into school with me to keep from getting taken away.
Oh gosh, I think I do remember that story, although I didn't see the pock marks that they left. I think I did that one time, but it was about a decade prior to your experience, and it happened to be fake grapes on Mama's table that I plucked off one afternoon and decided to stick to my face, and same outcome. Although back in probably 1975, there was no requirement of a cigarette burn notice. Nobody asked too many questions. But yeah, I think we've all stuck something that had suction to us.
Yeah.
Something else that the kids always came home with, and like bundles, or just say this collection that amassed here at the house, was the food themed erasers. if you remember, there'd be like little cheeseburger erasers or donuts, and that seemed to be big when Emma was little. And of course, I think we just recently threw out some that were heat exposed in the attic, and they were almost unidentifiable, but we kept them all those years.
Oh yeah, yeah, and they wouldn't erase yet. They were just there for looks.
Oh yeah, they were just there for looks, and they were just taking up space.
Yeah, yeah, I remember the standard pink erasers. Remember they're kind of at an angle on each end.
Oh yeah, sure.
I used to draw them into a race car, because if you drew wheels on each side and then drew a side and a top, it kind of had that old late model kind of look to it. So you could kind of transform those into a little race car.
Yeah, I do remember those. In fact, truth be told, they more than one time enticed me to take a little bit of a bite out of one, just because I thought the texture would be appealing. The taste, never. A little gritty, but more than once did I try that, because it just seemed like a nice little pink piece of fudge or taffy, but never what I expected.
No. Ooh, yeah, I can still recall that taste. Yeah.
The grit, that's what I remember. I do remember as a parent of a child who had the school book sale, they would always want to recycle, or not recycle, but cycle you as a parent. If you volunteered one time, then every time those sales came through, they would notify you, hey, can you come in and volunteer? You really learn a lot about kids, and maybe more about parents, when you witness the shopping habits of, a third grader who comes in with $20 every pop, and you've been there maybe a couple times a week, and that same student has a fresh $20 bill to buy more junk. Usually they often don't look at the books, they get the other trinkets that are in front of them, but they enjoyed it, I guess. But I think about those times. We were just talking today with my son being a junior. It didn't take long, probably fourth grade, before he asked us to stop coming to lunch. And that I was devastated, because that too is another proving ground, or a laboratory, if you will, to kind of get a sense about your community. Just sit in a public school cafeteria and you'll learn a lot about families, for sure.
Yeah, that's like a fast trip to anxiety, or like, just whew. Yeah.
Well, you'd see a lot of food trading, a lot of, unfortunately, I mean, in some instances, kids, that was the only meal of the day, and that never was lost on me. And we would have some great times at those lunch tables. And then you'd think you were buying gold if you offered to buy each kid at the table, a cookie that cost a quarter. You might as well, like I said, be buying gold. But those times are kind of priceless. It's hard to get those back. But I wouldn't dare step foot in my kids' lunchroom now. And I stopped getting the invite, I think, at fifth grade.
Yeah, there's those irreversible moments as they grow up. A lot of those.
So what are some wins for you? I know you spent the day with Eli today. Any wins today, or any exciting developments on the home front?
He did really well in his therapy today, and I guess the biggest win for us was we were able to reschedule all of his therapy sessions on into the afternoon, because he's going to have to switch over to school in the mornings starting whenever the school year starts. I think towards the end of August. He's got to be there in the morning now to keep him at the same school that he's been going to. So we were kind of sweating bullets how we were going to fit everything in, but luckily we were on the ball, and first come first serve this time of year with the therapy building that he goes to, as far as, like, getting, because there's a million parents that need to make that switch. So we were kind of on the ball and first come first serve this time of year with the therapy building that he goes to, as far as, like, getting, because there's a million parents that need to make that switch. So we were kind of on the ball and first come first serve this time of year with the therapy building that he goes to, as far as, like, getting, because there's a million parents that need to make that switch. So we were kind of on the ball and first come first serve this time of year with the therapy building that he goes to, as far as, like, getting, because there's a million parents that need to make that switch. So we were kind of on the ball and first come first serve this time of year with the therapy building that he goes to, as far as, like, getting, because there's a million parents that need to make that switch. So we were kind of on the ball and first come first serve this time of year with the therapy building that he goes to, as far as, like, getting, because there's a million parents that need to make that switch. So we were kind of on the ball and first come first serve this time of year with the therapy So we were one of the early ones to speak up, so we kind of got our way. We got to keep all of his therapists and just switch everything to the afternoon, like, flawlessly.
Ooh, so you got all that taken care of, or at least you have a pretty good
Yeah.
line on that. Good.
Yeah, that was kind of a worry of ours. They came through real smooth.
Well, what did I'm sorry to interrupt. I was going to ask you quickly, what was the award ceremony that I got to attend virtually? I forget. Was that just kind of the graduation of his preschool class? Is that what I got to see?
Yeah, that was the COVID affected preschool graduation.
Yeah.
It was just kind of really this kind of a fast, quick thing. He was the youngest in his class, so he'll be in preschool again this year, but at the correct age.
I see.
So he was the younger one. They didn't have any complaints about us putting him in there, so we just went ahead and did it. You know, when he has therapy and school rocking at the same time, we're busy, but he's in like peak performance as well at that point because he gets all the stimulation you could ask for.
That's awesome.
So
I think 2 years of preschool for all kids is recommended if you can swing it. I know that my kids seem to have benefited from 2 years of preschool. It doesn't always work out that way, but I look back and I think that was good for our kids for sure. So sounds good. I'm hopeful that I'm hopeful that you feel good about the school system that you're in. It sounds like you've got a good system going.
Yeah, we're pretty fortunate. I think we fell into a good spot with all of that. I've been it was a struggle getting it all lined up and going, but now that it's going, it's the fruits of all of that is definitely starting to show. So I think we lucked out, and he's in pretty good hands.
That's good. We've talked a lot about that, about what it takes to navigate a system that's not always amenable to, schedules, work life, to those who maybe have never navigated it before, or new town, new circumstance, new doctors. You can name the situation, name the health concern, name the need that anyone has, and it's like putting a Rubik's cube together. And Seth and I talk about that all the time, things that you would think would be pretty accessible or set up by now, where this is 2021 and some of the systems are so outdated and so it's like survival of the fittest sometimes still, and it's just really disheartening. That's some of our experiences dealing with some chronic disease and illness, but it's I'm glad you seem, you can see it on someone's face when they've got their everything settled. It makes for a good day. So I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, my heart goes out to the single parents that have 2 or 3 children, and like one of them is a special needs child. I don't know how someone like that is supposed to find all the things that took me forever to find. It's been a full-time job for me just to set everything up for us to go through all the trials and tribulations. So I couldn't imagine like a single parent even knowing where to go or to even maximize everything that's even out there for them, because a lot of it's not linked together. You just got to go calling numbers and kicking doors down and just try to just keep clawing and trying to find different things, and it can be overwhelming. There's so much at the starting line, like we finally reached a point where everything's set up. So now it's just kind of as situations unfurl from here. So, but it was a long road. I mean, a lot of ups and downs, and this country is weird. Like, if anybody's ever had the struggles of income limitation or having to live a certain way so you can benefit another way and things of that nature, it's pretty crazy sometimes to think that it's that way. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, until you walk those shoes and you're forced to make those choices, it is difficult to grasp. And I say this even in the last couple of years. Number one, as we all know, COVID has exploited some of our inequities and the different things it takes to survive, the different will to survive among our society itself, and then, or within our society, and then just having the stamina to keep on kicking those doors down, as you said. It's really a challenge, and you don't realize it until you have to experience it. Health, we had some health scares in my household that we had never faced, and I'll be very honest, we've broached the 50 mark, and we're pretty lucky to not have had that thus far. And so on one hand, you feel a little naive and embarrassed to complain, but on the other hand, you have to talk about what you see and experience. And I think the more we kind of share and talk about it, I think it's got to help someone. So I'm not shy about talking about that. But yeah, I think we're all equipped to just do what we need to do to get there. It's just takes a lot out of us sometimes. But yeah, I'm glad to hear that you've had a good summer and everybody's doing well.
It's I'll probably mess the title up, but it's like that old George Jones song, "I've aged 20 years and 5."
Yeah.
I didn't.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
I tell you, it'll wear you down.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you soon. I hear there's a family reunion. I was trying to imagine what that might entail. It's on your mom's side, so that's always a good time, and large family. So there's going to be probably some kids we haven't seen for a while, and so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. It's weird being 40, and I don't even know. I don't even know how many, like, the wave of cousins that I grew up with. I don't even know how many kids they have, or I mean, it's a lot to. I have majority of them on Facebook, but it's still hard to even track or to. So it'd be neat to see some of them I haven't seen in a long time. I wish I had a bit more going on in my life to share, but I'm flying by the seat of my ass. So just being able to be there is triumphant. So.
Oh yeah. Well, there's seasons in our lives that are, I guess, more for show and tell than other seasons, or more for regrouping and just kind of finding your new step. So yeah, no worries. I think we all have shown up to some event where we thought we were more than this or that, and then usually, more often than not, it happens that there's another 10 other people that feel a little lesser than you. So not that I want to ride the wave of other folks' despair, but the point is you're not alone. So
Yeah.
no, we don't ever worry about that. I think as you get older, you worry about that less. That's something about being a little bit more seasoned in life, unfortunately. Speaking of seasoned in life, sometimes we talk about things we want to bring up that trigger fun memories, or things that are hallmarks of our childhood, or the era in which we grew up in. And one of those Speaking of, because we're about to go to Florida, my family, if you live in Indiana or the Midwest, it seems like Florida is your go-to, so Florida is your oasis, and most people on the Eastern Seaboard and Indiana and everybody from that area go down to Florida. Well, made me think about all we did in our lifetime trying to get as much sun as we could, only to now later have all these age spots and cancer scares. And it
Yeah.
made me think of the old Ratchety lawn chairs we used to lay out in and douse ourselves in baby oil and sun in so that we could go back to school looking like some, well, name a wrestler that looks like brown skin with the white hair and the
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a really good tan guy. Old Rick Rude had a good tan. You go with old Rick Rude. He had that he was an arm wrestling champ. He had 4 arms like Popeye and he had so many abs, he had like an 8-pack. And he'd always be tanned up and gyrating around. And yeah, they always said in wrestling, Arn Anderson always said, tan fat looks better than pale fat.
Hallelujah. Why do you think there's so many older ladies my age that go to the tanning bed? I believe that. But here's the other part that always made me question it, because those that were true bodybuilders that wanted to show their lines and their cut, they also were tan. So wait a minute, it feels like every groove is shown or seen when you're more tan. So that I could never balance that. So I'm not sure which is right, but yeah, the pursuit of the tan and the blonde hair seemed to be the 80s and 90s goal. So we got to talking about those old Ratchety chairs, and the ones that I'm thinking of, there's the Ratchety ones that were like the 3-fold. You'd take them out, and sometimes the little mechanism or the gears would break and you'd be laying and all of a sudden they just give out on you and about throw your back out. But I was thinking of like 3 things that you left with from that lawn chair. You were either pinched, branded, or burned from those chairs. And so it was a love-hate relationship with what you were trying to do with those.
Yeah, and they were so damn industrial. Like the piping in them that they were built with was like the same as like a bicycle frame. Like they probably weighed 15 pounds, and then you slap that ratchet on there and it's a 30-pound chair.
Man,
Like a
yeah,
like a 3-wheeled ratchet it looked like the same shit that they used like if you bought a pallet of plywood and you had to put it on the back of your truck. It was the same damn ratchet, I think. The same industrial dangerous ratchet.
yeah.
And every kid had to play with it, stick their fingers in there, and
They're just like a bunch of packet of ratchet straps you'd buy at Harbor Freight. No different. Just slap them on a lawn chair. And those are the ones that, your mom or your parents said, grab those chairs. Well, hell, I can only get one at a time. They weigh 20 pounds, and if you're a kid trying to head out to the beach, and normally, it's a pretty good hike. And invariably, you'd clip a heel on one, or, you'd pinch a finger trying to get it open. And it's and then we used to always store ours in our you have an out shed or a shed in the back. Those things bake like an oven. They get up to about 130 degrees in the hot summer, mid-August, and you'd go to use that chair the next year and it'd be like melted together. So some of those plastic tubes had just given out by the end of the season.
yeah, they reminded me of the balloon animal balloons. The strapping.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were woven in, and they always had crazy like checkerboard patterns, and yeah, man, and they had there was even heavy plastic on the armrests of those too. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were not built for transport. They had, nothing friendly about it.
So what we're talking a little bit of a combination of two. So when I'm thinking, you're also thinking about like the fiber netted kind where you could buy replacement, webbing, so you could, and that's how industrial they were. You had these metal frames that you literally, well, the weave's going to go out, so let's sell these packs. And now I don't know how many families ever truly did that. Mine never did. That thing usually went into the trash. But if you've ever been on one that's about to give, that one swift shift in the chair and you're going down, but you can see it just get really threadbare, and all of a sudden whoever, it's like kind of like Jenga or perfection, whoever sits on it last, they're going down.
Yeah, you got one ass cheek that there's nothing touching it. There's your one ass cheek and thigh is floating.
Yeah, not too pretty from the back view, but it's a chair.
Yeah.
If it's the last one left, by God, you'll use it. Won't be too picky.
Yeah, I remember Mom and Dad's sketchy collection of TV trays they had.
Yeah.
They'd have like only 2 prongs on them. It was kind of the same deal. You had to just be real careful or your food was going to just go through a trap door.
Yeah, I have a funny story about that. So my mother-in-law was really dependent on TV trays, and for one reason, she often would live in a really small, compact home. So she was a real space saver, and they didn't really have a space. They had a bar where you could eat maybe your breakfast at, but they didn't have an area for a true dining table. So they relied on TV trays a lot. So she became a connoisseur. So for a period of time, because it was what she relied on, it became kind of this hunt where, she'd go to estate sales or auctions or whatever, and she'd call me up and, I found this great set of TV trays. Well, that's not something we used just because we had this dining area. And so we kind of moved through that process, but I've seen all kinds. And most recently I was helping my mom clean out her attic, which again had recently and regularly gotten up to probably about 130 degrees every summer. So we found an old set of TV trays, and my nephew was helping, and he's this big burly guy, and he's kind of like a bull in a china shop anyway. Well, he saw that these were not salvageable, so he did kind of like a Ric Flair move on one of them, and like busted one in half. But they were like remember the fake brown parquet pattern that you'd see, and they'd have like a gold ridge around them. I mean, that thing was like a piece of paper. He put his knee through that thing, and yeah, all that to say, for whatever reason, we were saving TV trays up in the attic, but we got rid of those.
Well, you never know when you need to serve 12 people in your living room. That day could just come out of nowhere.
Well, and the other thing about that is, if you think about it, those were originally created for those unique little freezer meals too. That was when, families would dare not think to sit at the table and face one another and have conversation. But those were for convenience and for, these frozen Swanson dinners, and we can literally watch TV and eat this frozen meal out of convenience. And so when you think about how those evolved, it's kind of amazing. We're kind of getting away from that. Or if we are, we're just kind of eating at different times, or we're holding food in our lap, or we're not worrying about putting them on a table.
Yeah, that's what my old shirt's for. My belly. I built this belly to balance a plate on it. I remember when I was a kid, we had a aunt and uncle come visit over there at the old house. Mm-hmm. And we got the old TV trays out, and none of them had the 4 prongs. Like 2 or 3 of the prongs were busted, and you had to kind of tuck the scissor legs like before the prong. That's how you would use a busted prong. Like you would scissor them out, lay the tray across, because it wasn't going to grab. You just hope that little bump of a remnant of a prong would hold the tray up. And we were having, I think it was onion rings, coney dogs, and mugs of beer. And this particular guests had probably 2 or 3 coney dogs, a pile of onion rings, and a cold mug of beer right out of the fridge, and he sat down and got comfortable, and whoosh, it all just went right down under the tray, like that game where you throw the ball and dunk a guy in the water.
Yeah.
It was just like whoosh all over the floor, and I'll never forget that. Those old rickety trays.
Yeah, what a cruel joke, because you think about all the things that you mentioned, man, can you imagine settling in, because you make coney dogs kind of in a, that's a personal thing. You have so much meat and you might want onions or a little bit of cheese, as I'm imagining, and you get your plate all ready, and onion rings, well, those are a treat at home. You don't make those very often. And then you get it all, and then the final item, the big mug of beer, just takes it down. Because what I was thinking was, yes, those prongs would often break, but had you ever used one so often, or used it in kind of or put heavy things on it for that matter, so the actual crisscross leg was starting to like crimp and bend, so there's a weak spot in the metal. So I'm thinking, like, if all the prongs work, then hell, one of the sides was crimped and crooked, and so you try to bend it back, and yeah, they definitely had a shelf life.
Yeah, Indiana folks, we thought it was life. Once you buy a TV tray, it's
heck yeah,
you're indebted for forever.
That's a good point, because we grew up that way. At least I know Dad had this philosophy that, first of all, very practical, and most often purchases are made for life, or in a way that you're going to use and get the most use out of them. Good thing about that, it kind of taught us to be, or at least a little less disposable, in the way that we think about things, or maybe not acquiring so many things that we're overburdened with stuff, because, especially Dad, he was always like that, even though he actually could probably buy the best of the best that truly would have lasted for 2 decades. But, pretty frugal guy. He would make the most out of what he did buy and make sure that we treated it right so it would last. That was something he definitely taught us.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure.
Now, I can't tell you I've passed that along to my own kids, but it served me, I guess. Maybe I've rebelled against it and like, oh yeah, watch this. I'm throwing this away and nobody can tell me otherwise, and I'm buying 5 more. It's not that, but
yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking, you remember growing up, talking about being young, you remember not having you ever find yourself in a place where thank God you have your cell phone just because you're bored, or because you're waiting in line somewhere? Just imagine, like, when we were kids without our phones, we imagine being in the DMV or the doctor's office or any line for that matter, and you couldn't get your phone out and just survive that like 20-minute pocket of what is now like fidgety, like it's torture now. I couldn't even imagine. Like, I don't smoke and I don't drink too often, but I think my phone is those things. Like, it's my, like, if a conversation's not going quite the way you want, you just look up sports on your phone. Or like when you were, like, for example, we were talking about family dinners and stuff, or just imagine, like, when you're a kid and you're in a room full of adults and they're just talking about stuff that you don't know anything about, and you're just lucky that you found a paper clip on the floor so you can just sit there and bend it.
Yes. Look, that's so funny that you said that, because yes. So the point is my phone is nowhere to be had, and not that I would be looking at it while we're talking, but if it were sitting here, I might be tempted, because if there's a little dead space or maybe something I wanted to check, there's definitely, we've been groomed, and we're dependent on that for sure. But when you talk about all the things that it replaces, I was trying to make a list in my head. So, yeah, heaven forbid we make eye contact with people that we're sitting in a waiting room with. Heaven forbid that we try to make a conversation or start a conversation. And then heaven forbid we just sit there in silence and think about our day, or write a few notes down, or grab a paper magazine, which I often have a discussion about looking at your phone versus what it would be like to be a subscriber to multiple magazines. Because, back in the day, and my mom is a living proof of this, at any given time, she's got about 5 Better Homes and Gardens, and Woman's World, and, a Red Book, and there's 10 magazines to go through. Well, that's the early version of scanning through Pinterest. That's the early version. So when I get a little bit of guff about looking at my phone too long, I'm just looking at a magazine. Think about it that way. But I definitely try to defend it because it's what I'm used to.
Yeah, my whole social media outlet was the magazine stand when I go on grocery day with mom. Like that was my big way to really tap into what all was going on in the universe, was just thumbing through those magazines. Like I just get a couple aisles ahead of her and look at those magazines, and then by the time she made her way around, I'd be through about all of them. It was, it's how I kept up, Sports Illustrated, video game magazines, wrestling magazines. I mean, that was the internet, those 6 shelves of random magazines.
For sure. I mean, I still get caught up because just, that marketing ploy hooked. I mean, it just is good. I mean, as you stand there, I think those companies that do that are the best at that are the Marshalls and the TJ Maxx. Have you ever been to a TJ Maxx lately? I don't know if you have. That whole chain is the masters of last minute purchases. They literally weave you through about a 2-aisle line that you have to go through, that is full of every electronic, every trinket, every bar soap, every home gadget that you might need. They put that in front of you as you go. And almost invariably when I go through, I will find at least 1 or 2 items. They get me every time. We were at Castleton not too long ago, and it was obviously before school shopping a little bit, so it was really busy. My kids, I wasn't willing to stand in that line, but because they found some stuff, they were willing to stand through the line. So we give them the card, and they stand in that line, and it's like they come out of there with 2 or 3 extra things that we didn't sanction, but it was the risk we were willing to take for not having to stand in a 30-minute line at TJ Maxx.
Yeah, they know how to get you. It's time is money. Longer they can get you to stand there, yeah.
They don't waste it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So you talked, as we kind of on the same subject of screen time, boy, how that's changed, and having every possible show, sports event, anything at your fingertips that you can drum up, through, versus having to rent the videos. And we talked about this too, is how that's evolved, and how the old video stores are like relics of the past, and if you find one in a little hometown, it's just like almost a novelty. But think about what was Blockbuster like for you, or your what was the other video store that was here locally?
Yeah, Lee's Video.
Well, definitely Lee's Video. That was really a homegrown, or a family-owned business. you know, when you see one though that's still active, you're drawn to go in because the collection must be fabulous.
Yeah, your whole, for me, you know, your weekend was set if you got a good harvest on the available video games on a Saturday morning, or like a Friday night, because you could rent them. A Sunday night would be free, so you could rent them for on like Saturday and then take them back Monday. And I would have mom take me to the video store. We'd be there when they open, and if you got a good harvest, a good selection, you know, either you get something new that has some potential, or you fall back on something you're used to, or whatever the case. Like you know, and then if your buddy goes, then you're doubling up. I mean, like, it was like $1.25, I think, to rent a Nintendo game. And you know, I'd get two, and if I had a friend with me, they'd get two. So there's four, you know what I mean? And then
Absolutely.
it'd be a weekend of all kinds of fun, or a good movie, or whatever. But there's also weekends too where you just lay a dud, like everything was out, or you took a chance on something and it was hot garbage, or you know, I mean, it was, your weekend kind of depended on your pilgrimage to the video store a lot of times. Just kind of see how things would go.
I mean, it was so iconic. They made movies about, you know, the video store, and I can't. Well, the mall rats and video store. I can't remember some of those titles, but I mean, it had an aura all of its own. And I know which one it is. Maybe I shouldn't name the franchise, but there was a franchise video in town, and I don't know if they help me understand the unique smell of a video store and what was happening there. Was it trafficked carpet?
I think, yeah, it had like it's like if somebody pissed themselves and covered it in baby powder and aqua velva and went out in public. Like, it was full of, like, it had that smell of people that didn't get ready to go to the video store. They just went. Like, they just dropped what they were doing, God knows whatever that would have been, and went to the video store. Like, there was no pre-hygienic behavior. They just roll in and grab what they need. But yeah, they all had like a funk to them, like a weird off odor that you couldn't quite put your finger on. Yeah, I remember, I think I shared this story with you before. One of the earlier video stores I went into, I was a little kid and I rented Top Gun for the Nintendo, and it didn't work. So when I took it back to the video store guy, he said that he would take care of it or fix it or something. So then I waited a couple weeks and rented it again, and it was still broke. That's kind of one of the early stages of my life where I kind of learned to read the room, kind of see the motivation levels that you're depending on, you know. And I was like, yeah, because I was little, I thought that guy could honestly fix it, but he just threw it back out on the shelf. It's an early life lesson there.
Yeah. Are you talking about the video store that might have been on Madison Avenue?
Yeah, next to the ice cream parlor that sold the fried bologna.
Okay, yep. I know.
Yeah, and the really good ice cream. You got to like chew it up. Had a little ice chunks in it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking here. I got my list of bills that I pay every week because I do this podcast just from my desk, and I'm looking at all these streaming services that I have: Peacock, Hulu, Paramount, Discovery Plus, YouTube Premium, Disney Plus. There's a couple others on here, wrestling or bare knuckle boxing related, and there's so many of them, but like the price for these is only like $7 here, $10 here, $12 here. So like it doesn't even add up. I mean, it adds up, but not into an overwhelming amount of money. But the pure content is insanity. Like sometimes I get on my TV and I get overwhelmed because, for example, the Disney app has every Disney movie. I mean, that alone is insanity to me. Or Peacock has a bunch of network stuff plus like every wrestling pay-per-view ever under the WWE brand. So I mean, there's, those are just small portions, and it's just the amount of stuff for what seems to me to not, growing up in the 80s, these prices on these things, to have them at my fingertip is like is worth it, but it's so much. I mean, if you look at all that, like I grew up when you had bunny ears on the TV and like 4 stations and everybody watched TGIF,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
now it's just like, it's just so much stuff. It's crazy.
Well, we talk about this at our house a lot. That was, we grew up in the day, or at least in this household, when TV ended at midnight or whenever it did. So you'd wake up. I mean, it was not uncommon on a Friday night or, any given night of the week. And if you happen to drift off on the couch and then you'd wake up, you'd see static or you'd hear the Star Spangled Banner. TV was done. Get to bed. Nothing more. And and the other thing that I was thinking about when you're listing Peacock, so I was really resistant to these one-off, enterprises like Netflix and Hulu. I'm thinking, I just want one source and I know generally what I want. Well, that was kind of the old cable model. And I have to say, we're still following that and doing the other. So we've got to figure out what's going to work. But all that to say, like, for example, Peacock, Amazon Prime, all of those, I just get such a kick out of the fact that when they call it an Amazon original, you have to create more content. Your collection alone that you've purchased the rights to is not enough. Then you've got to create more content. That's what I get a kick out of. So, it's not enough to, I love Peacock because it's old network stuff. And for me, that segment of television, the Thursday nights at NBC, were like some of the prime times of my childhood or my young adult era. And I'm thinking, this is enough that's set. And ironically, my 16-year-old son has been hooked by some of the old sitcoms and things that we enjoyed. So to me, we've got a whole lifetime or a season at least on one particular network service that's worth it. But man, there's just so much.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I've watched Cheers on several of these different streaming
We followed
apps,
all
and
this from Netflix over to Peacock, and then grieve because it went off, then it came back on. We've watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine. We've watched all of the ones that, and then, Modern Family. Heck, I missed that. My whole raising young kids, I didn't realize how wonderful that sitcom was, or, of course, they all get dated.
Oh yeah. I'm Cheers, Wings, Taxi, and Frasier.
Oh, nice.
That's my jam. Man, yeah. I'll tell you, if I could just be Sam Mayday Malone for a day. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he's a stud.
And he's still acting, is he not? I mean, he's kind of.
Yeah, he is a handsome 70-year-old man. I mean, he was born with looks, and he's gonna die with them. I mean, it's crazy.
I even know this, how his wife, Mary Steenburgen, she's actually aged quite well also. She almost looks like she's turned back the clock. So, it must have served him well, that life. Oddly enough, Shelley Long, who played, his love interest or his antagonist, whatever you wanted to call it, she was a pivotal figure or role in Modern Family. And I never knew that because I didn't get a chance to watch it when I was so busy during those years. But man, they just had the right chemistry and formula in some of those sitcoms. It was undeniable.
Yeah, she's a Hoosier.
I didn't know that. Where is she from?
Oh man, I'm thinking Fort Wayne, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can't think of her name, but also the Pam from The Office. I never know their real name. She's from Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Mm-hmm. We also got Steve McQueen and James Dean.
Joyce DeWitt from Three's Company.
Yeah, the mom from Brady Bunch.
Oh yeah, who's that? Florence Henderson.
Yeah, Gomer Pyle. I think Gomer was from Indiana.
I think so. That's why they always had him sing at the 500, Indy 500.
The Ultimate Warrior. He's from Crawfordsville. It's a lot of them, but I think we're reaching the end of that journey this week, so we should probably give our end of the episode shout outs and social media coverage. I think this show's really doing well, and we're up to just shy of 60 views total. Got about 10 views on the various podcast platforms, 5 subscribers. We appreciate y'all. I got everything up and running: Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat. I'm probably going to leave 1 or 2 of them out. And then there's a whole bunch of podcast platforms. Spotify is a big one. We're on Apple iTunes. There's just several. There's so many. There's a big list. If you just look in the video description or check out the YouTube channel, everything's under SameDad. We appreciate you for following us. I'd like to give a couple of shout outs here. First of all, I kind of like naming off a song. I think today's song would be Scenes from an Italian Restaurant by Billy Joel. It's got a lot of good transitions in it. It's like 3 or 4 songs kind of copy and pasted together in the way that they transition and the beat to it and everything. Tells a good story. Support your veterans. Take care of your mental health and autism awareness. And then,
now, Jesse, I'm never ready for these shout outs, but you do such a great job. I'm going to probably echo a couple of those and say amen to those, as well as, again, and I mentioned this last week, I think cancer awareness is real important. This is a time in our lives when, we may not have taken great care of ourselves in the last 18 months. Get caught up on the screenings that you're due. Pay attention. Don't be afraid. Knowing is better than not knowing. And, we've come a long way. So take care of yourself and good self-care. I'm always going to suggest, let's get back into this world and let's be good to ourselves and make sure that we're ready to go and be better than ever.
Yeah, amen. Definitely.
All right. Till next week.
All right, everybody. Love everybody. And thanks for listening. We're glad to have you. Hope you're enjoying it.